Hey guys, Drifter here. Welcome to Black Ops 2 In-Depth. Today's episode is the long-awaited Standoff map guide before I got distracted with everything else in the world. This episode's going to be slightly different than the other map guide. I took all your feedback into consideration. I'm going to be running slightly less cinematics here. We're going to be focusing more on the lines of sight and the grenade and jump spots. We're also going to cover the spawns, but not at the beginning because that was considered boring. And then we're going to skip over to the general tips near the end. I hope you enjoy it, and I will appreciate your feedback on the format of this episode as well. Let's get started. The first unusual line of sight today has to do with the cracked hole in the wall. You can come over here and crouch and shoot snipers that like to post up in that window. They almost never see that coming because when you look at this from their point of view, the sign obscures most of your body and you are very, very hard to see. However, if your teammates are complaining about people hiding behind the hay bales and shooting at the middle of the map, you can easily wall bang them through that sign very, very easily. This is probably the most difficult spot today. You have to run along the tank, jump off the end of the barrel, land on the trash can, and then you can shoot into the courtyard very easily. You can't just climb into the trash can. Again, that one's very hard. This one's very easy. You just jump into the, I guess that would be the mouth of the tractor, the lifty part, and you can shoot snipers that like to hide behind those boxes over there and shoot you right out of the spawn. That's an excellent place to kind of rush to because if you can make it to the tractor, you're almost always going to catch somebody. Everybody sits behind the boxes, but you can actually stand behind the soda machines and shoot people that way. Very, very effective. This next tip also gets people out of the middle building. This is one of the meanest head glitches in the game. From their point of view, all they see is the very tippy top of your head. Then you can just climb these boxes here right up into the window and pick up whatever gun they had. Easy peasy. These hay bales are very effective for two spots. Number one, if somebody decides to get on top of the tank or back there by the tractor, especially if they get on top of the tractor and not in the lifter part, I forget what it's called, you can very easily shoot them over the tank and you can keep people from sort of using my own spots against you, however you want to say it. The more practical part of these back hay bales is you can get in here and look all the way through both of these doors. There is a hard point that usually spawns in there and it's a very common rush route. People almost never expect to see you waiting there. You can hose them down very, very easily. This last spot that I have for you today is probably the most difficult. J-Hub does it like it's easy because he's J-Hub and that's what he does. But you can stand on top of these boxes and jump and see into the yellow building. Now, this is very difficult to do because it is a jump shot and you do have to time it, but there are very often people running in and out of the yellow building or standing in the yellow building trying to shoot out. The auto aim got me there. So if you time it right, if you have the skills, you can jump and nail people and you will look like a god when playing this game, but that's very, very difficult to do and you're also very exposed when you're doing that, so I would be incredibly careful. Now it's time for the part of the guide about spawns. These are generalized spawns because each and every single game type has different spawns. I don't want to do it 6 times for TDM, CTF, domination, demolition, hardpoint, search and destroy, all that sort of stuff. But in general, the opposing teams will spawn in their primary zones, either back by the farmhouse / deli, whichever you want to call it, back behind the blue van down there in the bottom left of the map. And the other team will spawn in the top right of the map, back by the main house, or the back tank as I would like to call it. And most of the time, the teams are going to be spawning in one of these two zones, but this is kind of a spawn flippy map and you usually end up with 1 or 2 people on the other side. So then we go to our secondary spawns. The most popular and well-known secondary spawn is back there by the gas station. Typically they're going to spawn just to the left of the gas station, not inside the building, but over there by their pumps, and they're going to run down the map toward the initial spawn that we talked about, the red zone. Very easy to kill. The other one is a little bit more difficult to get a hang of. It's back here by the tractor that people like to camp on. A lot of people spawn there and they're either going to rush back to their original spawn or they're going to try to take cover behind that tank. Those 4 spawns are by far the most common ones that you'll see in this game. The backup spawns, probably the first most common backup spawn is back on the other side of the deli on the bottom of the map where I would call the boxes region. People have a tendency to pop up there, and if things are really, really chaotic, every now and then they'll pop up in or around the big house in the middle. That's much less common. 95% of the time you're going to see people spawning in either one of these blue or red zones. And spawn control is a very important thing in this map, so please keep those in mind at all times. We're going to be talking about that more later. There's only one really impressive grenade spot that I know of in this map, and this is what I do in the very beginning with a stun or flashbang. Every time you can throw the grenade past the water tower, it's always going to bounce off of the gas station, and if you're rushing in the beginning of the game, you are almost always going to catch somebody in this back alley. I always throw this grenade, I always catch somebody rushing, and I get them stunned, and I can come around the corner and just pop them easy peasy. Works 95% of the time, and I'd recommend you give it a go too. Something of an unusual tip is Sentry Gun placement. A lot of people like to put the Sentry Gun on the roof, but the best place to put it is back behind this flap or sign for the building here, because it's protected on both sides. They can't shoot it from the side. It's a little bit easy to hit with a Simtex there, but it can watch the entire left side of the map. It can watch the middle building, and it can watch the gas station spawn. This Sentry Gun absolutely dominates over here. If any of you watch the COD Championships, you'll notice that this is where all of the pro teams put their Sentry Gun, because there are very few, let's say, heavily trafficked areas that you can travel and avoid the Sentry Gun. It even gets the middle courtyard, not down there by the B flag, but the one underneath middle building very, very effectively. It's just a nasty spot. So if you ever get a Sentry Gun, it doesn't even matter what spawn you're on. Even if this is the enemy team spawn, it's sometimes a great place to put it. And you can see from the overhead map here, I kind of made a cone to show what it can look at. It can look at the better part of the map. The only thing that you're not going to be able to get is the enemy team spawn. Everything else that's important, you pretty much are going to lock down with this Sentry Gun. Now we're moving into jump spots. Probably the one that you all know about is you can jump over the outhouse here and then into the window and climb in here. It's a very easy back attack to take down this hotel room building in their spawn. The next one is that you can jump onto the tank, and then you can run off the side of the tank and run and jump onto the roof and assault the window directly without having to come over the left yellow building, without having to go up the ladder, and without having to fool with any of the stairs. This is my personal favorite. Sometimes you get trapped out here and people throw grenades at you. The reason you can climb on this statue is you can usually get out of the way of the grenades. However, you are very exposed by doing that, so I would be very cautious with climbing the statue, but it definitely can save you from grenades. The rest of the gameplay that you're seeing is from an 18-man open lobby that I hosted last night. The message system was down, so I just set my party privacy to open and let all the subscribers come in, and we played some really fun games of hardpoint and domination. My gameplay, personally, not the best here because everybody wanted to kill me and show me how great they were, but you do get to see me playing the map while I talk about the more generalized tips. The number one first general tip that I can give you is to avoid the middle road, and this somewhat depends on what skill level of players you're playing. The middle road where B flag would be, where all the explosive cars are, the opposite of the courtyard and the two sniper windows, that is a death trap. You never want to be walking down the middle road. You're always going to die. Unless, of course, you're playing extremely skilled players. Extremely skilled players that assume that you're also extremely skilled aren't going to watch that because they're just not expecting smart people to go through there. But if you're not playing the best of the best, that's probably not a good place to be, because even if you are playing good players, they do check it. In general, just avoid the middle road. If you take that road, you're taking a big risk. I'm also going to recommend that you're going to need to turn around about once per minute if you're on the winning team here, because the spawn is going to swap very, very fast. Remember those blue and red zones? If you don't remember them, you can skip back earlier in the video. If your team is winning and they're pushing, about once every minute, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, sometime in that time period, you're going to need to swap and change your focus to the other spawn, because they're going to change very fast in this map. Do keep that in mind. If you're on the losing team, you're going to need to anchor yourself somewhere on one of those spawns to get a consistent one, and when the other team goes for the swap, when they're expecting you guys to move and you're not because you're anchored there, that's when you're going to be able to come back. My next piece of advice is to never stay in a window very long. This is a very tempting map for that, because there's about 4 or 5 windows that overlook key areas of the map, and it tempts you to sit there and stay and hope that the bad guys are going to keep running and going to keep killing them over and over and over again. But the reality is that your enemies are never really this stupid, so the longer you stay in a window, the more you're screaming, "Hey guys, hey, I'm in this window, hey, I'm over here, throw grenades at me." So after you kill 2, maybe 3 people, if the action dies down, you need to move, because everybody's going to be gunning for that window and you're probably going to get sniped or grenaded. The next piece of advice I have for you is about how you traverse the map, and that is to stick to the sides of the roads. The middles of these roads have no cover. There's nothing for you to hide behind. You're just a giant walking target on a flat plane. You're super easy to shoot. You stand out really easily. However, most of these roads have really excellent cover on the sides. Unfortunately, a few places it's vehicles, it's explosive cover, but on the sides of each road or each path on this map, there's really, really great cover, but there's absolutely no cover in the middle. So avoid the middle of the path and just stick to the sides, and you're going to live much, much longer that way. Lastly, and this is something that I still have to remind myself of because it gets me all the time, avoid the cars. Cars are terrible cover because they explode very easily. One grenade, a handful of bullets, and kaboom. The car explosion, and at least in previous Call of Duty games, would sometimes deal over 1,000 damage, so even if you have flak jacket, it's utterly hopeless and you're just not going to survive. The cars look like they're great cover. You can climb on them, you can shoot over them, but they're actually terrible cover because they explode so very, very easily. Avoid them if you can. Avoid them near the objectives, just avoid them as much as possible, and that'll keep you alive in this map. Well guys, that's all for this episode of In Depth. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you enjoy the slightly different format as opposed to the last map guide. I'd appreciate your feedback on how I did on this one, what I could do to improve, make it better, worse, that sort of thing. Just whatever you guys want to say, and whatever map you would like to see next. The next episode of In Depth, we're going to be discussing Tactical Knife and the accuracy change that you get with Tactical Knife. And in the previous episode, we're talking about lag compensation and how I believe we can improve lag compensation. So if you'd like to watch either of those videos and click on the box, they'll open. As always, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.